Working with your wedding vendors goes far beyond just signing a contract. Did you know you're responsible for a whole other part of that commitment? One that's not written on paper. Today, we're discussing the 9 crucial things you need to do for your wedding vendors, so stay tuned.
Welcome to the Step-by-Step Wedding Prep Podcast by Wedding Connections of the Hudson Valley, the weekly show that makes wedding planning fun again. Here, you'll go from planning panic, that constant sense of feeling overwhelmed, stressed out, and needing to please those around you, to being in control again, feeling confident, encouraged, and calm in planning the day you've always dreamed of. From interviews with industry experts to first-hand planning tips and more, you'll learn ways to make wedding planning easy, affordable, and as stress-free as possible. Now here's your host, Felicia Zamet McMahon.
Hello, and welcome back to the show, where we teach you everything you need to know to plan your wedding like a pro. This is episode number 19, and I'm coming at you every Wednesday answering the most commonly asked questions couples have when it comes to planning their wedding, and bringing you expert advice from the most amazing wedding professionals in the industry. If at any point you felt overwhelmed, stressed, or completely clueless planning your wedding, then you are definitely in the right place. Now, if you're a first-time listener, welcome, and I'm so happy to have you. And if you're a returning listener, thank you once again for taking time out of your day to be with me. Before we start the show, I just want to share some really exciting news that you can now listen to us on iHeartRadio, which is the #1 platform for podcasts. So now it's even easier to listen to us. So we're really, really excited about that. But today we're going to be talking about your wedding vendors and what you need to do for them that go beyond just signing a contract. So these are sort of like the unwritten rules that go far beyond what's written on paper and what's signed off on. So now that weddings are starting to emerge again, albeit they're definitely modified from what they used to be, and they're definitely a lot smaller, they still require vendors. And whether or not you're doing a modified wedding this year, or maybe you pushed it back to next year, these rules will apply to any size wedding, big or small. Now, we spoke about mistakes you could be making when hiring your vendors back in episode 13. But what you really need to understand is that while on the surface, hiring your vendors may seem like a transaction in that, you're paying them to provide you with a good or service, what you're really doing is forming a relationship, and a relationship that lasts for quite some time, sometimes even years beyond your wedding. So let's dive right in with the first thing you need to do for your vendors, and that is to never tell them you're on a budget. And I know this sounds so crazy to hear, but I want you to hear me out. So while it's true that you may be on a budget, who isn't? Everybody is. 99.9% of all the other couples are too. Being on a budget is a given. Your vendors know this. They know it very well too, so you don't have to tell them that you're on a budget. In fact, this is probably one of the things they hear most often, and it actually really does a disservice to you and them because you're putting price over value. So remember, price is what you pay, value is what you get. So I'm going to say that again. Price is what you pay, value is what you get. So by you saying you're on a budget, it's sort of like you're kind of passively, aggressively saying, hey, you know what? I like your work a lot, but I don't value it enough to pay the price you're asking. So that's why it's so important to do some research before you start talking to any vendor to see what the average cost is for that particular service and what you're getting for that investment. Because the last thing you want to do is fall in love with a vendor let's just say it's a photographer or any other vendor who charges more than you're willing to spend, and then ask them to come down to meet you at your budget. That's not the way that works, and it's really not fair. So you need to do your research. You need to decide, based on what you're finding, how much you're comfortable investing in that particular product or service. Then you want to find vendors in that price range. So this way, you never have to say you're on a budget because you'll already have found vendors in your comfortable price range. Second, don't ever ghost them. So I know, this is something that happens quite often, but I want you to pretend for a moment you're like me, okay? So I like to say that I fall into the quote, nice girl trap. I'm a nice person. It's hard for me to not be nice. There's people out there who have no filter, who say it like it is. And honestly, I totally admire them. And I wish I could be like that, but I'm just not. And it's just not my nature to, not be nice to somebody. So when I have to tell someone bad news or tell someone no, it actually causes a lot of internal strife because I don't want to cause hard feelings or start any sort of conflict or confrontation. And there may be some of you right now listening to this, shaking your head and saying, yes, that's me. You try to avoid conflict at all costs. However, your wedding is a great opportunity for you to learn to say no. And you're going to have to learn to say no, and you're going to be saying it a lot when it comes to planning your wedding. You're going to have to say no to the onslaught of ideas and people coming at you with ideas and unsolicited pieces of advice and comments and questions from almost everybody around you. And you'll also have to say no to some vendors. So if you attended wedding expos, or even if you just send an inquiry email, that vendor is going to follow up with you. They're going to get back to you and maybe set up a consultation phone call or a meeting to discuss your vision and your expectations. And then you're going to get off the phone because you're shopping around. And guess what? They're going to follow up with you again. Now, there's a part of you that might think that's a bit salesy or pushy, but they're actually following up with you for a reason. They have other couples who want to book them, and they want to make sure that if you're interested, that you get on their calendar before somebody else does. Now, they know that you're shopping around. They know that you're not going to book the first vendor that you see or you talk to. But the thing is, if you're not interested, please don't leave them hanging. This is a terrible way to do business, and you need to put yourself in their shoes. Trust me, if they didn't have thick skin, they wouldn't be in this business for themselves. They could handle a no. So, they'd rather hear a no than to be strung along wondering where you disappeared to. And if saying no is hard for you, maybe it's hard for you to do it over the phone. Maybe you prefer to do it in an email or over text. Whatever way is the most comfortable for you, all you have to do is keep it short and simple. You don't have to go into detail. And really all you have to say is, thanks for meeting with us at the show or, however you found them. Thanks for meeting with us. After reviewing the information, we decided to explore other options. Period. End of discussion. Now, you also have to remember as well that even after you say no, they still may come back asking for more information. And again, they're not trying to be pushy. They may just want feedback, because if it's something you don't like, chances are another couple may not like it as well. So they just want to try to hone in on what they're offering and tweak it in the future. So, okay. Let's move on. So we kind of talked about what to do prior to, booking and prior to your wedding. So now we're going to move on to the in-between time. So this is going to be the time after you sign the contract to the day of your wedding. And what do you do in between that time? Well, this is probably the easiest thing to do, but oftentimes it's one of the things that's completely overlooked. And that is keeping your vendors informed, having an open line of communication, and being as transparent as you can be. You want to make sure you tell your vendors of any changes you want to make, anything you might want to add or get rid of. You'll need to share with them a timeline, but here's a little trick. A really good wedding vendor will help you with your timeline instead of letting you determine that on your own. So if you're really struggling with your wedding day timeline, go to your vendors. It's like that scene in The Godfather when they say, go to the mattresses, go to your vendors. And you want to share with them any important contact information and phone numbers, and basically just make sure everyone is on the same page. Keep everybody in the loop so you've covered all your bases. You've given your vendors the best tools for them to be on their A game and to make sure everything goes smoothly and stress-free. Weddings are a very structured event, so no one likes surprises. So don't keep any of them from your vendors. You also want to make sure you make your payments on time. Now, this is so important, not just because of the obvious that it's good business and the moral thing to do, but remember, most of your vendors are small business owners, and what you're paying them not only helps them grow their business, but also helps provide for their family. So many wedding professionals right now are hurting because for many, doing weddings is their sole source of income. And for so many months now, that's been taken away from them. So please, please, please make sure you pay your vendors on time. Another thing to consider is if you don't pay on time, it could compromise your wedding date. So you definitely want to be aware of what could happen with delinquent payments. Now, more than likely, you'll have to put down a deposit first. Sometimes it's 50%. And then you'll have to make payments along the way, leading up to your wedding day. And each vendor and their contracts are totally different. So make sure you either mark payment dates down on a calendar or set a reminder on your phone, or make a spreadsheet, whatever helps keep you organized to make sure that you're paying them on time. They're going to be holding up their end of the bargain and they want you to do the same. So now your wedding day is here. You've done all the planning. You've checked everything off your list. Your wedding day is here. You're having a great time. Everything is going as planned. Your vendors are kicking butt and giving you the best day ever. So how can you return the favor? Well, the first thing you could do is feed them and really feed them. So, they're working their tails off and have been on the go with you all day. And guess what? That builds up an appetite. So, one of the things you can do is make sweet little goodie bags for them, full of maybe granola bars or protein bars and water or snacks or, anything that they kind of pop in their mouth throughout the day, because they're going to be traveling with you as well from location to location. Now, more often than not, if they're a real professional and have been doing this for a long time, they'll actually bring their own snacks. But you really want to make sure that they get a meal at your reception. In fact, many venues count your vendors in the head count and will usually discount vendor meals for you also. So you aren't paying the same price as what you would be for your guest. But yes, they do eat, they do need to be fed, and they will completely and totally appreciate it. Even if their contract says they won't be requiring a meal, always offer one to them. I mean, feeding someone, for me, it's so nurturing and caring, and you just want to make sure they get to taste the same yummy food everyone else is eating. You also want to make sure that you tip your vendors. So, even if a tip is included in the price, giving them a little extra really shows how much you value them and their services. Remember, yes, this is their job, but they're also giving up their weekend to be with you. It's the nature of the beast to work weekends when you're in the wedding industry. But how many of you would rather be home on a Saturday with your family instead of working? Probably all of you. You'll want to tip your limo driver. If you hire a limo, you want to make sure you tip them. You want to make sure you tip your maitre d' or your coordinator, your wedding planner if you hire one, your DJ, whoever. So you just want to make sure that you bring some cash with you, or even look at the contract to see how much of a tip is required and bring it with you that day. Now, just because your wedding is over and you're now officially married, your relationship with your vendor doesn't just stop. You've most likely bonded with them, so much during your whole planning process because they've probably been with you at least a good year. And you want to make sure they realize how their efforts and talents help make your day so special. So when you're writing out your thank you cards to all your guests for all their gifts, make sure you write one to your vendors. Let them know how much you appreciated their time and their talents. A lot of your vendors consider themselves artists and they want to know that their work was appreciated. Make sure you tell them how they made you feel and how they helped make your day so special and memorable. Everybody loves to be thanked and recognized for something they did. So make them know that what they provided for you wasn't taken for granted and that you truly appreciate what they did. You also want to make sure you leave them reviews on all the platforms that they advertise with. So we're talking like the Knot, Wedding Wire, any other services like that. Now, they'll reach out to you within a few weeks after your wedding and ask you to take some time to leave a review. And, it's very easy to sort of pass this by the wayside. Maybe you see the email and you're like, oh yeah, I'll get to it later. And then you never do. But, if, maybe you think you don't have time, or maybe you think that they have enough reviews and they don't need yours. But that's the worst thing you could do is ignore that request. Reviews are extremely, extremely important for your vendors for a variety of reasons. One is it helps them get recognition from those sites, which in turn helps build credibility for their business. So, maybe you're talking to a vendor and you see one of those like best of awards, maybe like, in their booth or in their office, wherever it is. Well, that's how they get them, from reviews just like yours and all the positive, good reviews they get. Also, like I mentioned before, many, if not all of your vendors are self-employed, meaning they don't have a big corporation behind their work supporting them, and they may not have huge marketing budgets. So for them, more often than not, word of mouth is their best marketing tool, and the best word of mouth comes from reviews. Now, I'm saving the best for last. This is something that needs to be done on an ongoing basis from the moment you make first contact to the last review. And this is so important. And that is never, ever be rude, demanding, or outright mean to any of your vendors. Weddings are full of emotions and stress. There's no denying that. But being stressed is no excuse for being rude or abusive. Now, is that to say all vendors are wonderful and spectacular? No, but just remember though, if you did good research ahead of time, and if you're transparent and keep an open pathway of communication, there should be no reason for you to get upset. Remember, they're professionals, and outside of you and your family, they're the ones that care the most about your day. So of course, they're going to do everything they can to make you happy and deliver what you deserve. But with that comes with trust. If you don't trust your vendors, then you shouldn't hire them. So yes, technically you hired your vendor and technically they're working for you, but weddings are not a transaction. A wedding is a life-changing day. So yelling, cursing, demanding, throwing, anything like that should never, ever, ever happen. Especially now when everyone is dealing with something they've never dealt with before. no one knows what to do, and everyone is doing the best they can. If you have a question about a rescheduled wedding or are wondering, maybe why you're not getting all your money back if you cancel. Now remember, canceling is very different than rescheduling. Or, maybe you're upset that you can't get the day that you want, or, whatever the case may be. Yelling and getting upset is not going to make anything better. Just keep a cool head, be empathetic, put yourself in their shoes, and try to work with them the best you can. So, those are my top 9 things, in my opinion, you should always do for your vendors. Now, you may have more to add to this list, and I would love to hear what they are. So if you have something to add, definitely add it in the comments below. If you've enjoyed this show, and if you know someone who could benefit hearing it, I love it if you could share it with them. Don't forget to subscribe, and if this show is really helping you tackle that overwhelming planning learning curve, please leave a comment and let others know how it's been helping you. If you're a wedding vendor who's listening to this, I would love to know what you would add to this list as well. What did I forget? What would you like to add? So definitely leave a comment on our Facebook or Instagram page and let us know what couples can do for you that would really make a huge impact. As a reminder, if you have a topic or a question you like covered on the show, definitely send it our way. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook at SBS Wedding Prep. And if you're a Hudson Valley bride or groom, join us over at Wedding Connections of the Hudson Valley at weddingconnectionshv.com and on Instagram at wedconnecthv. I'll be back next week with even more amazing wedding planning tips and advice. So until then, happy planning.